What's up, y'all? It's FTL, and trigger warning, trigger warning. There might be some weird shit going on in these videos, but I mean, it is what it is. These are true stories about my life. If you ain't trying to hear that, then get on up off of it. You dig? Just to get in the first story, to set the stage, I'm a 5, maybe 6 year old kid coming up in South Side of Chicago, right? Now, in Chicago, to this day, you get little mom and pop shops. Everybody trying to hustle, everybody trying to make a buck. We would go to these little mom and pop shops to get, some chips and cheese, maybe a candy bar here, some ice cream there, type shit. And there was this one lady, she lived a couple blocks away down the street, and she had a candy store. Okay, straight candy. Big things, the crunch bars, baby Ruth bars, and she was all selling them for $1. It didn't matter. Dollar this, dollar that. You feel me? And that's how she would make her money. Now, I would come in there, and she would always hit me off with something extra, She was like a grandma type lady. I was a, fat, chubby-ass little kid, Old people want to see the young bucks eat, you know what I'm saying? So she hit me off with a little extra, which was cool. You feel me? It was cool. But it got to the point, though, where, every time I come there, my brothers and sisters, they would want me to come specifically so they could get extra shit from the candy lady. And I'm like, bro, I don't even really want to go there like that, you know what I'm saying? Because sometimes she would I don't know, I wouldn't say made me feel uncomfortable, but thinking back on it now, maybe I did feel uncomfortable, but I don't know. I'm a kid, I don't really know what's going on or what's happening. But she would just hug me and kiss me on the cheek and shit like that. And I don't know if it was just the natural anxiety that is within me or whatever, but I just wasn't really fucking with her like that. I didn't really like being touched or anything like that, especially with somebody I didn't even really know. But she would give me candy, so it made me feel a little better afterwards. Now, I don't think anything weird went on with her or whatever. I definitely wasn't with her by myself ever, you feel me? But I don't know, when I think back on it, I don't know, it didn't make me feel uncomfortable, because I didn't want to go back, and maybe that was just anxiety, but I don't know. But that was my first experience of being uncomfortable with somebody that was older than me, much older than me, as a kid. Now, years later, we would move to Minneapolis, right? And I used to go to a school over north. It was a big school, you feel me? I didn't fuck with the school. I didn't like nobody there. I hated the teachers. I was a bad kid, pretty much. Through and through, I was a bad kid, Pretty much all my brothers are, our names, they're oh, okay. Because we all a year apart, so every time another person would come into the school, one of my brothers would come into the school, they would already be on a bad foot because what my older brother, me, and some of my younger brothers would do. But that's not the point. One day I'm sitting in math class. I'm in 5th, 6th grade. I'm sitting in math class and the teacher's teaching, and we had this white dude. He was a TA, and he was in the back of the class, just sitting there making sure everything was cool, taking notes or whatever the fuck TAs do. So I'm sitting on the desk, right, and I got my knees on the chair and I'm leaning over the desk, pretty much with my ass in the air, right? And I don't think nothing of it. I'm a restless kid. I'm a bad kid. I'm restless, hyperactive type stuff. So I move a lot. You know what I'm saying? I used to rock in my chair all the time. I would stand up just to, they would let me stand up to take notes and shit. I was just a hyperactive kid. So I'm just fidgeting, moving around and shit. But I'm still taking notes and everything like that. And I look back and this grown ass man, bro, is staring at my ass, bro. This shit was, I don't even know how to interpret it, how to internalize it when I was that young. But I look back and he's staring at my ass. Then he looks at me, makes eye contact, and then looks up at the teacher and what the teacher's doing. All right, and then I quickly sit down because I'm embarrassed. I'm a kid. I don't really know. I look at ass. You know what I'm saying? I'm at that age right now, and I'm he's looking at me like that. I don't know how I feel about that. I felt embarrassed. I felt kind of shameful. I was like, what the hell? And later that day, when I got to lunch, I told one of my friends. And I was like, yo, man, that teacher, you weird. He was staring at my ass while I was sitting down like that. He was like, oh, well, you shouldn't have been sitting down like that. And I'm like, oh, well, shit. When I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, maybe it was my fault, because when I sat down, he didn't look at me no more. So I'm like, oh, well, this ain't, maybe it's my fault. Maybe. So I never sat down like that again, or I stayed away from that teacher for the rest of the year or whatever. But that shit was just, I don't know. That shit was just weird and odd, and I didn't really know how to feel about it because that shit was just weird. I never seen that shit before, you know. And then that really like kind of humbled me because I was like a kid and I was like, oh fuck you, you adults don't know shit, and you know what I'm saying. And then it's like, oh wow, you know, that made me think like, oh wow, this is a grown ass man. You know, if he did want to do something to me, I really couldn't do shit about it, you know. And I don't know, man. That shit was just weird, bro. Anyway, all right. There's another time when this time I'm in the state that I live in now. I'm 17, and I'm walking home from school. Okay, I'm 16 or 17. I don't know, but I was walking home from school, and there's this white dude, old white man. He had to been like 60, 65. He rolls up in this Chevy. And he rolls up, and I'm walking through the parking lot. There's like a Kroger, and I'm walking through the parking lot to get to my house. Like I'm a block and see my house. He pulls up in front of me, makes me stop. You feel me? Damn near like rolls me over. And he's like, "Yo, you want to get sucked off?" And I'm like, no." And then he drives off. And like, it's funny now that I think about it, but that shit was so like I was so shocked at what this nigga had just said to me. Like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck did you just ask me, nigga? Like, what? Like, the balls on this nigga. Like, what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? And I don't know. All right, but that's not even really what got me. You know what I'm saying? What got me was I went back home, and this is the first time I ever told my parents really about anything crazy that happened. Like that last story I told y'all about the teacher, I never told them about that. I think I just forgot about it as soon as I went home, you know. Sometimes it's better to do that. But I go to my parents, and I was debating telling them when I got home, you feel me? I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't tell them. Maybe I should just, you know, go on about my day or whatever. But I ended up going upstairs, and I told him, like, hey, man, I was at Kroger's, and this dude, he asked me if I wanted to get sucked off. And it was just an old white dude in this damn Chevy, and he this is what he said and shit. And my mom was like, oh, well, you know, you safe now. Just, you know, be on the lookout for him. If he ever does that, you know, make sure to, you know, take your kid, you know, your brothers and sisters, stay him away and everything. And Dad was like, yo, well, she was really just comforting me, you know, just saying like, oh, it's all right, you know, you safe now, you here, it's all good. There's a whole bunch of weirdos in the fucking, you know, in life and shit, and you met one. But my dad, he was like, did you get the license plate or whatever? And I was like, nah, I didn't get it. He just drove off. And he was like, why didn't you get the license plate? You know, what if your little sister was walking down and he approached her or whatever, you know, wouldn't you want him off the street? And I'm like, look, man, it all happened, you know, super fast, and I couldn't really, you know, get the license plate. I was in shock that this nigga had said this shit to me, you know what I'm saying? He was like, oh, all right, whatever. And then he didn't really take that as an answer. And then he went on to this whole fucking like spiel about like, oh, if that nigga, he'd take you and fucking take you into his barn and just rape you all fucking night and day. And I'm like, bro, what the fuck are you saying? Like, my mom, she got mad. I'm like, why the fuck would you tell that kid that? And I'm like, I don't, like, that shit really like fuck with me too. Cause I'm like, bro, that might have happened. Like, that could have happened. Like, why the fuck are you telling me that shit? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. That's why I really don't be telling like my parents shit. Like, I'm a grown ass man now. Like, anything that happens to me, I'm pretty sure I can handle it. But like, that's why I really like after that. Like, I never really told my parents some shit that was like whatever I was going through, what was going on in my life. Cause like them niggas not really, you know, too helpful. You feel me? If anything, my dad be making shit worse, you know. But that's just like some of the weird ass stories that. Like some weird ass shit that I had encounters, you know what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't call them like pedophiles per se, but just weird ass fucking people, you know, and sexual encounters with older people, you know what I'm saying? Especially at a young age. And it's just like, I don't know. That shit, it makes me sick, like fucking thinking about that shit to this day. Like, I can only imagine what people actually like go through. You know, children in like foster care, you know, facilities, going through the system and just living out on the street and shit like that. Like, fuck, I got off easy, you know. But that's just it, you know. There's not really too much of a lesson or anything, you know, about it. It's just some shit that happened in my life that I lived through. gonna start coming at y'all with a couple more stories every now and then, and just crazy shit. But like, subscribe, comment, whatever, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.